in Brazil. And I immigrated to the United States when I was 21. The idea was that I was going to do an 11-week English program so I could have more marketable skills when I went home and went back to business school. But I ended up challenging myself. That's
so really you had nothing to do with entrepreneurship. You were consulting, right? That was your consulting in finance?
Yes. So
what was your specific background?
Yes, so in San Francisco, I had my consulting practice for 12 years about.
Yeah.
I was working very closely with the principals and the entrepreneurs. So what I was doing really is I was keeping a notebook of the do's and don'ts when you work with companies, and I wanted to know like what's working, what's not working, what kind of policies they're doing. So I was really getting a lot of background info on how to run a company, but finding out what was working, what was not. So I thought, one day when I own my own company, I have all this information that I can apply. So
were you telling them what to do?
I was definitely telling
them what to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a key skill that you learned just through your profession. Is telling.
Yes, except that my nickname is growing up was the general. I was the general in the household, so my dad used to tell him. I told everybody what to do from an early age, but that just fit in with my skill set growing up. Yeah.
So you moved to Portland. Were you working here or were you staying home?
So what happened is
by the way, she has some very smart kids who
one is TYE.
Yeah.
Well, when I moved to Portland, because I had a consulting practice in San Francisco, I had to give up my entire consulting practice, so I came in at a fresh start, and I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. I'm going to become a nutritionist. I kid you not. So I thought, this is the best thing. I'm going to go and get my science classes, and I'm going to become a nutritionist because I wanted to be in health. That was my goal. And so I did that for a year. I took full-time classes, and I was going to become a registered dietitian, and then I got divorced. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work.
Adversity presents an opportunity.
Exactly.
So now tell us about how was that pivotal towards your entrepreneurship journey? Tell us about
it was very pivotal because when I got divorced, I thought, okay, well, I can't just, go to school. I had to go back to work and figure it out my life. And so I did that, and I started going to the workforce. But, I was a consultant for 12 years, and you put that in a resume, and everybody's like, oh, really? So... consultant. So anyways, I started going back to the industry. I became controller and director of operations and kind of just moved on again, but wanting to open my own company. Now, mind you, I wanted to be in health, right? So I was trying to figure out what concept could merge my business sense with health, and I didn't want to be in food per se, but when you are a nutrition enthusiast, you know that diet is the number one thing that you need to have to keep your health. So I felt that was a great opportunity.
Well, you can't rule out the exercise part because I see you running up in the hills.
That is correct. And I was also a Zumba instructor, in case you didn't know this. But yes, I was teaching Zumba when I first moved to Portland. So I was dancing and all that, but I just thought that there was a gap in the fast casual industry for food that was fast and healthy. So that was when I had the idea
of Garden Bar.
Of Garden Bar.
So tell us, how did that start? What were the early days like? What did you do? There's a lot of women here in this audience. Obviously, they're looking to start a business, or maybe you were looking to start a business. What were your first few baby steps? What did you do?
For Garden Bar, you mean? Yeah. So first of all, the idea came. Let me just say, I had this horrible job. I cannot tell you what it was. But anyways, I had a half-hour lunch, and I only had half hour, and if I got back later, it would be horrible. It was terrible. Anyway, so I had to find this half hour. I had to find food, and I was at Chipotle almost every day, and I'm thinking, can I get more than 6 ingredients, for crying out loud? It's just I just got so tired, and I thought, can I just have, and I was eating the salad at Chipotle every single day, the same exact salad. So I thought, oh my God, I'm sweating just thinking about it. But so anyways, that's how the Garden Bar idea came about, right? So I started looking for something like that in Portland, and I couldn't find it. And I'm thinking, this is so bizarre. It's something, why? Now I know, but I didn't know that. So couldn't find it, and 2 years after my divorce, I settled my house with my ex-husband, and he gave me a little bit of money. And I had this little money, and I think to myself, am I gonna buy another house, or am I gonna open a business? I was gonna buy another house, and then I remember I was having dinner with my sons, and my oldest was 9 at the time, and he said, well, if you open a business, then you can buy any house you want in the future. And I said, words of wisdom, let's go ahead and do this.
This son will be an entrepreneur.
That's correct. He's the one who's at TYU right now. Yeah, so I thought, yeah, let's do this. So I thought, you know what? Well, I didn't say that because of that, but I thought, I'm a terrible house owner. So I thought, might as well just open a business. So I knew that's what I had, right? I had a very little amount of money, and I thought, what am I gonna do? I am not in the restaurant industry. So I started trying to find people that were in the industry that could give me an idea of what it would take to do that. And that's when I came across my business partner at the time, my co-founder. He was a restaurateur in town, and we talked, and he told me what it would take to get the concept off the ground. But I said, all I have is this amount of money, and he looked at me and said, I'll make it happen. And I said, well, let's do this, and let's just do what it takes. So we knew that we wanted to make it happen, and there were some criteria that we had to have, like we wanted to be in the Pearl, we wanted to we knew how we wanted to develop the concept. We studied what was working in other parts of the country, because it was a concept that was really well developed in the East Coast. So we were looking at our competitors and seeing, and the idea was, if these competitors came to Portland, how can we compete with them across the street? That was the idea. So we built the model with that in mind.
Did you look at any one particular?
Yes, we looked at several, right? We looked at Sweet Green, of course. We looked at Chopped. We looked at mixed greens at the time. Those are the three that we really model after in terms of how we wanted the line to go, the ingredients, the presentation, and all that. And then we designed everything in terms of how we wanted the business model. And then I did all the business end, and my co-founder did the restaurant side. And then we got it off the ground. But with restaurants, there's MIC here from restaurants, but if there's anybody from a restaurant, the way it works is you find a location, and everything goes around that location, right? So if you get the location, then you have just a couple of months to open. So we found the location. Once we signed the lease, we signed it in November, we opened in January. So we really had to do.
What year was that? 15?
So we opened our first location in January 27th, 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when we opened the Pearl location with a very, 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 very limited budget. And the idea was we're going to use that to prove the concept, right? We had to prove the concept first, and we did. That was a successful proof of concept.
Right. I remember getting the big salad at the jail head office, which is next door.
Yes, we used to have the 64-ounce bowls. Do you remember those?
Finish it.
But the salads themselves were
delicious.
They were 48 ounces, but the bowls were bigger, but people wanted us to fill all the way to the top. And I'm thinking, you're not going to be able to eat that like in 3 days, but yeah.
I ate that for 2 days.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you got started in the Pearl, and you had a business partner. And you put a little bit of your own money. At that point, did you raise any money, or was that?
No, it's all my money.
The first one was all your.
It was all my money.
So then what happened? Then you wanted to start the next one. So how did you go about raising your next round of funding? And give us as much detail as you can around that, because I'm sure a lot of people will be interested.
Okay. So I did the traditional route, right? So at first I self-funded, and then the second you go family and friends, right?
Yeah.
So for the second location, I had family and friends for the Old Town location.
Right.
So remember, if anybody has been to the Garden Bar of the Pearl, you probably don't know this, there is no kitchen in that space. We ran it without a kitchen, right? So the second location was really close to the first location because they had a kitchen. We're like, okay, we're going to use one kitchen for 2 locations.
So how you were transporting salads from somewhere else?
No, we cooked everything with one electric stove and one induction burner for a whole year. The amount of times that we had the alarm go off for the firemen to come in, the amount of solids I had to give to the firemen to say, please don't charge us, because it was like that alarm would go off all the time, and he couldn't believe we were doing that. I don't even know how the hell, I don't even know, but it was just that for a year.
Yeah.
We cooked everything from the tiny space, and then we had our little kind of commissary
Kitchen.
going. Yes, yes. So the second location was funded by family friends, and then I had a very small SBA loan, very tiny.
Tell us a little bit about the SBA loan. What did it take to get that?
The first SBA was with a conventional bank. It was such a small amount that they were like, oh, okay, you know.
Did you have to give any personal guarantees?
I did, oh yeah.
Because you didn't have a house to mortgage.
Yeah. Personal guarantees. I started sweating just talking about it. Yeah. I had. Well, first of all, I had to personal guarantee the leases. That was hard, but I had to personal guarantee the SBA. And what they did is they saw the traction for the first location, and then they said, okay, we'll give you a loan. So we did that, and then with that plus the family money, we opened the second location.
Where were you on revenue in that first store in that first year?
When we first started?
Yeah.
So the first store, when we first started, you know, mind you, there was nothing like this in Portland. We started in January, we finished at about 600,000. And then the second
You
year...
can see a line, I remember seeing lines during
Yes,
the
yes,
So
yes.
location worked where you
Location worked. What we were trying to understand is throughput, right? Because remember, throughput is the key for fast casual. But I had no idea. I didn't even know what that word was when I first started. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta learn. But it was understanding throughput, waiting times, and how do we get things, and how do you organize, prep, all that. So we used that first location as a testing ground for understanding how to run the concept. And then second location came right close to it. So we were only like about 5 blocks apart, but they didn't intersect, like the bubbles didn't intersect. And that's how we started to prove the concept. It was more of a convenience model. We were not a destination model. So it was more like Starbucks, you know, you go to the closest store as opposed to walking a lot to get to the location. So we felt that we needed to cluster that in downtown and then have ones that are close to whatever the office. So as you know, you're talking to somebody, oh, this is one that's the closest to me. Usually you go to the closest one to you. Yeah, so that's how I did it.
And so once you did that, we'll talk about the challenges at that time, and then you decided to grow, and then what did you do next in terms of adding more stores? What were your next steps?
I think that the biggest challenge is obviously, you know, for a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, you probably can relate that, you know, your first year you're working 2 jobs, right? So I had two jobs. I was working in Garden Bar, but working a full-time job somewhere else. So the first challenge is, you know, when do you make that leap and go, well, I am going to jump and get out of the job. So that was the first thing, because then you have to figure out revenue and all that. So that's hard. And then the challenges are always because restaurants are they are very capital intensive. So when you have money to build a restaurant, you put a lot of the money in a restaurant. You have to put a lot of money to run a restaurant, and you don't have a lot of money left to the behind the scenes, you know, to have the infrastructure. So that's why you hear so much of owners, you know, they're working 24 hours because they don't have capital to be able to run it behind the scenes. But after the second location, we were now working on the model, and we realized, well, I realized after modeling okay, so let me just go back. My background is in finance, so I'm used to doing financial modeling, and I love financial modeling because you can see the progress of things. With restaurants, it was really hard to see beautiful. I mean, I was modeling in every way possible, and I was realizing like the model is just really, really hard, you know? So when I was...
Why was it hard? Why was it hard?
Because the cost of goods is so high, yes, and your margins are very thin. So a restaurant, you know, I know it sounds bizarre because you go to a restaurant and it's so expensive, but the cost of food, the cost of labor, when you get down to the bottom, you're down to a margin that's maybe 2%. Yeah. And you're happy if you're that. It's really hard. So actually we did an exercise with our team once, and Nicole remembers that, right? We did like, how is the dollar spent? You know, you have $1 that comes in, what goes to food, what goes to labor, and it's actually Elephant's Deli has a nice poster that shows the burger and where every single thing goes, because there is a misrepresentation of what the margins are. So the only way to make the model viable is by scaling it and having volume. Because by scaling it, now you are having more stores and you're diluting your costs, right? So that's when we decided that we were going to scale. And that's when I did my first raise.
Right, so talk about that first raise.
Yeah, exactly. So I will talk about it. That's when the lessons start. Okay. So the first raise we did an equity round.
And how much was that?
500,000.
Okay.
Very, very little amount of money. I thought I could do everything with 500. Because imagine, I built the first store so cheap. I'm thinking, oh my God,
What
500.
did you spend for the first one?
$68,000.
You know, a comparable store would cost about $1 million.
Do you remember? She built a restaurant. She knows. I
Yeah.
mean, it is about, today to build something, it's at least 300 for it. I don't know how we did
$1
it.
million means, I mean, looking at
I don't even know how we
what
did
they
it.
do.
Yeah, we
Right, they
spent
spend about $1 million.
very, very little. If you go to the Pro, you will see it, actually, because we really, really, really scraped. But we did it. The idea was to do it. And then when I had the 500, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much money. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And I did. I mean, that 500 took us to store number 6, right? So now.
So talk about what happened in that phase. Like,
In that phase?
Store. Yeah.
To open all the stores?
Yeah. And where did Ty come in that picture? It was like one
I
check.
wasn't there yet, because, hold on.
There was one
no,
check.
because, there's one check,
Yeah.
one check.
Because you presented to us.
Yeah, and you
And
guys
we
said
were-
no.
Yeah. So,
Because I went back, no, there's a better story after that, but they go like,
Not yet.
do restaurants. I'm
One
like,
angel, Greg Block, took a chance on it.
because Greg Block was also, he's correct, Greg was also a regular, and
Yes.
he would come to the restaurant every day.
Yeah.
So he was super excited to see that we were going to present. So he's like, oh my gosh, you guys are going to present Thai. I'm like, yeah, we are.
So it's a lot easier to raise money from your customers, right, if they like your product.
Yeah, two of our equity raises were actually customers that were coming in every day. So we raised the 500. That was quite the experience.
So where did you get the rest of the money? Who were the investors? And talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah.
And did somebody help you? And
What was the form? What was that, a note?
No, it was a straight equity.
Equity round.
That's the mistake. I should have done it. No, what's that?
But we'll talk about that later.
It was a price round, yeah, and exactly. And that's what I would have done it completely different. I didn't know at the time.
I think if she had done a note round, she might have been able to raise money from some more Thai.
Exactly. I didn't know that at the time. So yes, did I
But she
have
was
a little
giving-
help? I did.
But you had an advisor that was helping you on that, right?
Yeah. So you can call it that. Yeah. So I had, So we did a price round, and it was my first time doing this. I had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, literally, those documents are this big. David knows these things.
I didn't work on the price round.
No, he was not in the price round. He was not in the price round. He was not in the price round. But I did a price round. So basically what I was doing is literally pitching. And this is the thing, you gotta remember, fundraiser is almost a full-time job in itself, and I was running the company while doing that. So here I am, working behind the line and having to look pretty an hour later to go talk to an investor and pretend everything is so calm, and then go back, jump in the restaurant again. So it was like, ooh. But I was meeting with people, and someone knows someone, and then you just meet and you explain, you do your pitch. And I have a lot to say about pitching, as you know, because you only have that moment to capture someone's attention, to get someone interested in your story and what you're doing, to believe in you. And that's how I found my investors, was by talking to people and talking to this person or this person. So I had 8 investors in that first round.
And the gender disposition of all those investors? All male.
All male. That's correct. That is correct.
I just wanted to let that out.
Yeah. I think that's true. Correct. All male. And then we did that. Went to store number 6. I still had in mind that I wanted to get to store, number 10, and so we needed to do another round, and that's when we did a note. And that's when David came in, he picked.
No.
No?
David came a little bit later.
Still a little bit-
Sorry, he didn't come in at that point, I guess. Oh, that's right, he didn't come in. See, my memory is failing. I wanted David to come in so bad, I guess. I don't know. So we did a note round.
But in that, between that time and the note round, what happened in the operational side of the company? How
So
fast
that's
did
the
you grow?
important, that's an important piece, because I raised 500 and there was not enough to put in infrastructure. So the 500 got me the stores open, but didn't get back end. And that's where the struggles were for me. That started is that I was doing everything by myself. I was running everything alone. By that time, my business partner and I had dissolved the partnership, so he'd
So
gone.
what happened there? Why did that happen? Can you share that? It's some level, just for people's benefits in terms of, because that happens.
Sure, yeah.
You know, sometimes.
You know, what happens a lot in business partnerships too is that it's like parenting. You don't know what kind of parent you're going to be until you have the kids, you know? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're growing. Oh, I want them to do this. I want them to do that. We just started not seeing things eye to eye anymore. We didn't agree on how we wanted to run the company. And it was better for both parties to set up, but to part ways. And then I ended up taking over the whole thing and sort of working with production manager. By that time, we had a central kitchen. A kitchen that was running the whole thing and how we did the distribution. So I started working a lot more on the supply chain things. Figuring out how to distribute things, how to get the ordering, all the back end logistics that you have to have because. You walk in at 10:30 in the morning, we need to make sure that there's all the ingredients are there for you. How to make sure that nothing is missing. How do we have enough for service? So there's a lot of back end work that has to be done. And my difficulties were that, I was building a team and trying to figure out what's the best way to run it on my own without I didn't have a COO or anybody like that.
But you were able to attract some talent that was helpful.
I was able to attract, my team at Garden Bar was stellar. I have actually two of the people that work with me here, Nicole and Lanny. Nicole right here came in. Nicole, do you remember when you started?
November of 2017.
17. She has been my rock since. She was extremely, she was it, right? She was running that show with me. We cried a lot, didn't we, Nicole? A lot. We laughed, and so with Nicole, we really built a strong team of managers. And what I did was I really relied on building my manager's skill set to run these stores like their own, and really started teaching them how to read P&Ls and how to do that, because those are the people that needed to be there and help me run these, because I didn't have, someone that was running for them. So that's how I had to find creative ways to be able to run the company.
So this is all still, you're operating on fumes, you raised the $500,000, you didn't raise any more money until you get to the note.
That's
so
correct.
In the intermediary, there was no loan or?
No, just the 500.
500
Then
to
note.
open 6 stores
Yes.
is.
Do not recommend that. Do not repeat
But to
this
pull
at
that
home.
off is pretty amazing.
Do not recommend that one. But yes, and then the note came.
And then you started talking back to us.
Then I did. I went back to Thai because they said no, I'm going to go back again because I don't like to hear no.
Actually, Greg Block was very instrumental in bringing that
Yeah,
back.
he was. And then I came in back and I remember I went back to Thai and I said, look, I know that you guys don't want it, but I want to show you what I accomplished in this year and a half. It was a year and a half after.
And that's what just floored us.
Yeah.
With a very small amount of money, she had 6 stores and $4 million in revenue or $3 million?
Yeah, we were at about, at the time, I think about 3.6.
in
Yeah,
revenue.
yeah.
And she, and your management team, even though she didn't have C-level people, but it seemed like she was able to attract talent to help her.
Yes, and we started creating a culture where we wanted people to feel empowered. I mean, the culture that we created, it was really, I was very proud when we left. And you're building it from scratch, really.
Yeah.
So we then raised the note, and the goal was to get to store number 10.
Right, and so this is where, if my memory serves correct, we had just launched Elevate Capital, so Time made a commit, and then we made a commit.
That is
The
right.
inclusive fund.
And I remember so well the feeling I had when I looked at Elevate. I went to TYU to pick up my son. I talked to Nitin briefly. He said to me, check Elevate, and I thought, oh, okay. And then I go on the website and I think, oh my gosh, this is a fund that is for me. You know what I mean? It was like, because you gotta see, before I raised the note, while I was raising the note, I did try to get conventional loans, and I went to several banks. I felt that with 6 stores under my belt, about almost 4 million in revenue, which bank is gonna say no? All of them said no. They're like, oh, your credit score is so bad. And I said, well, but it's not from me, this is for the company. Well, that didn't matter. So I wasn't able to get anything from the banks. I couldn't even get an increase in line of credit. So I thought, what am I gonna do? So that's when the note came and we started raising money with the note.
And it was sort of like a perpetual note.
There were 3 tranches.
Yes.
There were 3 tranches. So Nitin came in early on that. And Nitin came in every tranche, thank God. It was in every tranche of the note.
But it was a Thai Angels and Elevate sort of effort with some other investors that came.
Correct.
How much did you raise in that first tranche? Was it $500,000 or?
So I remember. The total amount was 1.1.
Right.
So it was broken into 3 chunks, but the total amount of the note was 1.1.
I described that situation for you as that you were stuck in the gap.
Yes, I
Because you
was.
needed all this money, but it wouldn't all come at once. It just came in chunks.
Yes, and I was building new stores, right? So, oh my goodness. Yes, I was building new stores. Meanwhile, there's a contractor, like, I need my check. And I'm thinking, hold on, it's coming. And there were moments of, but.
How was that experience? Like, describe that. Like, what?
The anxiety of it. Yeah. It's very anxiety driven, right? You know this. Guys, I'm going to tell you a story. Maybe nobody knows this. We had a note, I had it committed. I was just waiting for the money to be in my account. But my contractor said, unless I get this check, I won't continue it. And if he didn't continue, he was going to delay everything. It was just going to be a nightmare. I literally went to Charles Schwab and took all the money out of my IRA account. And I'm like, I don't care if there is penalty, if there's not penalty. I did that, I took the check, I sent it to the contractor. So you're just doing things you can to move and keep you moving, and believing in what you're doing. You just don't even know, you just go and do it. The anxiety comes because, again, everything that can go wrong in a restaurant. It just does. I don't know, you wake up and all of a sudden someone forgot the faucet open all night and then there is a flood in the restaurant. True story, And so there's things like that happen, so you just have to deal with, that is the reality of the business. You can't fight that reality. And so you need to be prepared financially to be able to fund these issues that will come. So if you think it's going to be perfect, it's not going to.
So what motivated you to get up and go to work every morning with all of this anxiety and all these problems? Like, how do you keep a straight face? Because I had no idea that you were going through this, right? When we were writing checks.
Ben, I can answer that one.
Did you have a support group? Did you have other mentors? Did you have people that you would talk to? Like, how did you manage this?
Yeah, my fiance was here, poor thing. He was a huge support. No, I did. I have to say, look, obviously, like I said, and I say this a lot, Nicole and Lainey who were here, they were extremely amazing supports for me, like in the group. But I joined a bunch of entrepreneur groups where you do a lot of commiserating. I also joined a group of only retail, so for example, I have a very tight group with Michelle Cairo from Olympia Provisions and Katie Pope from Blue Star. So we all got together and we all talk shop, and it really helps a lot when you're going through the same issues. So you definitely find mentorship. One of my mentors is Bruce Silverman, who is the owner of a store called Providor, which is a great place, but Bruce worked for Whole Foods for so long, and he's such a Yoda, he's always calm and smiling, and he would calm me down when I went there to talk to him. So you find your mentorship. But what I didn't find, and I'm going to be very honest, because that's how I am, I didn't find help that was a cohesive, that was linear. So I'm going to explain what I mean. Like, you go to your attorney and you have your help, right? And then you go to your CPA and you have your help. But these two silos don't talk to each other, and then you have financial help, and then that silo doesn't talk to each other. There's no one that can give you a cohesive plan of action, right? I never found a consultant like me in San Francisco. I was looking for myself, but I didn't have one. I was looking for somebody that could help me see the bigger picture for the entire company, and I never had that. I had to put the pieces together myself. And that was I think that was probably the hardest thing, because I was taking this information and this information and this information and trying to make sense of everything together. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you didn't have mentors who had gone through that journey
Exactly.
in the food business.
In the food business.
Specifically at that stage.
No. And mind you, we don't have a lot of multi-unit chains in Portland to begin with. So I didn't have anyone that I could go in and say, how did you scale this? Or what are the things I need to do? There was none like that. So I had to figure it out, man.
You had techie guys writing checks.
Techie guys.
Who loved your food.
Exactly.
So, for all the mentoring that you did, what was most effective?
So I think what happened is when I joined Elevate, it was great, because Elevate, what happened is I always call, like for example, if I see, Ali or, somebody, I always say, oh, they are my Elevate brother or sister, like we feel like we have the same parent, right? And then we sort of bond together. And Nitin did a great job, like he would have founders breakfasts where we all come together and talk about issues. There was always, I always knew that if I had to reach out to somebody, that they would be there. So I always found that there was a smart way of investing, because the best thing you do when you invest, and if you're able to mentor the people you're investing on, they feel supported and they don't feel like they're alone in this journey, so it helps a lot. So I thought that was great. Another thing I did is when I started noticing that I could actually go to my investors and ask for help, that was very, very helpful. They were open to talking to me, they were open to mentoring me, they were open to helping me through the difficulties. So that was something that helped me a lot. And so Elevate was one of them, and obviously Steve March from Archivist, they were instrumental during the sale of the company. So I was very grateful for that, I was.
So what was the most challenging times in that phase, from store 6 to 10? Were there any particular challenges that you want to share, that you're comfortable sharing?
Nicole, you want to take that one? It was cash flow.
Yeah.
Cash flow was the most challenging. I must say, I never hated snow days as much as I did when I had Garden Bar. While my son, poor thing, he was feeling guilty if there was a snow day and he wanted to celebrate, he would come to me and say, it's okay. So, because you don't know when the snow is going to come, and you don't know when you're not going to have revenue, and you need cash flow, and guess what? You got to make payroll. So these are the things. It was probably the most. You probably can tell my voice. That was making payroll, making sure the cash flow was there. Those are the things that were the hardest to do. Because we wanted to make sure that the guests are taken care of. So you can't cut people. You have to have people there. So you have to have a level of service, right? So those are all the variables you have to have when you're running a business like that.
So you got to 10 stores, and then what happened?
I got to 9, and then we signed on a 10th. Yeah, so that's what the question is. Like, oh, what happened then? I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But so what happened was, when we got to the 9 stores and the 10th lease was signed, it was time to think about the next strategy for growth, right? So now here I am. My angel...
In the middle, you did get some loan money, too, right?
I did, yes, you're correct. This is a great story, actually. So I'll tell you what, I'll share that. So while I was going through all this thing, one thing that we do as business owners is we max our credit cards, don't we? Yes. And what happens with that? 18% interest rate, terrible. So I went to every bank before I went to MISO. I went to the bank.
How many people are familiar with
Is
MISO?
anybody familiar with MISO?
Okay, enough
great.
people. Okay.
Yeah. So before Nita came into my life, she's my angel, I went to the banks and I proposed to them and I said, hey, look at my financials. I'm paying this interest in these credit cards. If you give me a consolidation loan and I pay you this interest, I'm going to be saving money and paying you in full because the company is making the payments, right? No, nothing. I'm like, okay, wait, makes sense. Doesn't make sense? Nope, doesn't make sense because we don't do consolidation loans. I said, I know you don't do it, but look at the numbers. It makes sense. Well, it doesn't matter. So MISO totally got it. They're like, of course, makes total sense. I'm like, no kidding. So MISO was a turnaround for me. They were amazing. If you don't know about them, you should definitely look into them. They are they are the ones who really help, you know, and it's the type of company I feel that they're there to help and to make things happen. They don't have fancy offices, not have beautiful views. All they have is a very efficient team who is dedicated, and they are really, really, you know, they're making the mission happen. So we did get a consolidation loan from MISO.
200,000.
We got 300.
300,000.
I used some of that to consolidate the debt, and then I used some of that to pay bills and things like that.
So MISO, they do loans and technical assistance for women, minorities, people of color. I think they're saints.
They are amazing. They really are. They're incredible people. They are.
So anyway, so you got that, and then you got to store 9, and then...
Then I got to store 9. Okay, so...
Anything else before that? Any advisors that you needed to deal with? And I don't know if you want to touch that, or you can pass that. It's up to you.
Well, you know, I had a little bit... So, I guess the only advice I have about advisors is that just because you have an advisor doesn't mean that you need to close your eyes and not see what's happening. I think what happened with me is that I was so focused on running the business that I just let the advisor run the show, and there was a mistake on my end. So I owned the mistake and then moved on. So that was one of those things you need to know when, you know, even though you might trust people with your art, learn your craft, and in particular, learn your numbers. But I know my numbers, but I did not know the funding structure piece. Now I do, but I didn't at the time, and that's the part that I regret not knowing.
Those are the sharks in this town. You know, the advice I would
Yes,
is like,
that's important.
check out the people before you sign up.
Definitely do your homework on that
Just
one.
because somebody says they're going to help you raise money, it doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything. So that's one of the things. But yeah, so in the meantime, during this process, we were considering the next step. And one of the ideas was that we were going to go to Seattle. And so I did a trip over there, and then our competitors in Seattle found out that we were looking, and they were also looking to come to Portland. So the CEO of Evergreens, who is the company that acquired us, contacted me on LinkedIn and asked to meet and to chat. This was 2 years before the acquisition happened. And we started talking, you know, and we liked a lot each other. We started talking about our company vision and how we want, you know, how if we had the same ideas on how we wanted to grow and what our mission was, all the things that we needed to know to see if we would be a good match. So we started talking about possible joining forces, but we talked for about 2 years back and forth, and then when I got to start number 9 and getting to number 10, I had to make a decision. What would be the next step? The next step could be one of a few, right? I could have another plan of growth and then raise more money, or I could go into a merger and acquisition. Those are the 2 options I had. What I really wanted, I thought, it's been 5 years my investors are with me. I'd like to get them bought out and get the money back to them. So my goal was that I was going to try a PE company, a private equity investment, or I was going to pursue an acquisition. So I started talking to some private equity companies, New York, Los Angeles, different parts of the country to see if there would be an opportunity for us. But at the same time, I made a trip to Seattle, and I had a conversation with the CEO of Evergreens, and I said, you know, I'm going to start pursuing other suitors. If you guys are interested in acquiring us, I think this would be a great strategic partnership for you. And they said, yes, I think so too. We did a study.
You had lost your advisor by then.
I had lost my advisor, yes. But what happened was, Portland, we found out Portland was too small to have two big chains of restaurants of salads. And if they had come, we would be just splitting customers, you know, it would be really hard. So we already needed more customers, as Garden Bar was, even though, you know, we had enough, we still needed more. But if they came in, we would just split, and both of us would not succeed. So we decided we thought the best option would be to have a strategic partnership, and that they would acquire us, and that's where the offer came, and we felt that was the best thing to do.
And Archivist was very helpful.
Archivist was instrumental.
How about that? How did they help you? How did Sam help?
They did the entire M&A process.
So this is an investor who didn't charge her anything
Nothing.
to get the sale.
So normally, if anybody's familiar with an M&A process, the M&A is going to probably ask for what, 5%?
6%.
5 to 6% of the deal is what they ask to be able to negotiate, right? But Sam from Archivist did all the negotiation for us, because you have to have somebody that is a third party doing the negotiation. I don't want to be negotiating, right? So they are the ones doing that. But he was instrumental to the end. He was there with me the whole time. It was incredible.
And in the meantime, you found a good lawyer.
I did. There he is. So in the meantime, I switched from, you know, the other company to David, and we started working together. And David was with me as well through the entire process of acquisition. So, yeah.
And from our standpoint as investors, we love that because we got an early exit, and that's
Yes.
what we're about. But what I really liked about your strategy was, and you never said it, but we just sort of knew, she was building a moat around Portland. When you acquired the 10th store, we had this conversation.
Right.
She said, I just want to get the lease because I know they want it.
So
And
that
I
is
am going to
great.
just get that. And we said, here's a check for $150, go do it.
That's exactly what happened. So
We
that
didn't know
10th
the store was going to happen
location.
and how much we gave her the money. Like, just do it, right?
So yeah, the 10th location, I found out through the grapevine that both of us were wanting the same location. And,
But you had the relationship.
but I had the relationship, and so they gave it to us, and Evergreens got really upset that they didn't get it. So I said, well, it can be yours. Guess what? So they ended up getting it. But that 10th location was a strategic one, yeah, for sure.
And then how long did it take you to actually close the deal?
It took us 9 months. No, 7, no, hold on, 6. Yeah, no. So it was August. Huh?
9 months.
9
9 months.
Yeah.
Could have had a baby.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was gonna say,
Yep.
It was like waiting for the baby to come. And
Exactly.
it did
It was a 9-month process. It took forever. And those were very hard months because during that process, you literally cannot get any funding, right? It's not like I could just go get a loan. It's not like, that was the hardest 9 months of my life. I had to phone calls to vendors, letters, asking for them to extend the terms, asking, oh my gosh, payroll. Oh,
You didn't like pawn your jewelry, did you?
I did, actually. I did. As a matter of fact, I remembered bringing my wedding ring, like from my, so just giving you this, here, take this. No, I was, everything I could possibly put on the line, I did. I put every single dollar I had on the line. No exceptions, nothing. So you have to do that because we had to keep the company going, right? And I had to, I couldn't stop. But I had to say, you know, our vendors, the majority of our vendors were very nice. They were understanding, they worked with us. We have vendors who, you know, our team, right? Nicole can say that. Our team was, oh my gosh, was heartwarming just seeing how much they were working with us because we were really having to figure out ways to make things happen,
So now you've exited, they bring you on board, you look back, What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of what we were able to build in Portland. I think that we built a very beautiful brand, a brand that, that we didn't, this concept didn't really exist until we came in Portland. I think now if we talk about a solid chain, we know that we were able to provide that. I think we built a great team. I'm very proud of the team that we built, and the way that I saw them develop and I saw them grow. And I'm very proud of the people that no longer work at Garden Bar, but still keep in touch with me. I
So
still,
a great culture.
yeah, we did. Yeah, I still talk to the managers, my production managers, people that worked with me years ago. And yeah.
So what advice would you give, and we're going to open it up for Q&A shortly, but if there was a few words of wisdom or advice that you would give to budding entrepreneurs, especially female and underserved entrepreneurs, like what would you tell them? If they're either starting the business or have started a business, what advice would you give them? What are the sort of little pearls of wisdom?
Oh boy, it's hard to have just one, right? But I think that this is what I feel, like no matter what stage of entrepreneurship you are at, there's always going to be a point where you're going to paralyze and say, is this the time, right? Is this the time that I quit everything and go for this? Is this the time that I do this? Is this the time? So the real thing is there's never the right time. There is a time, but not the right time. I think that my advice would be just to take action, but know that no matter how much homework you do, how much study and planning, and whatever action you take, the result may be what you do not want it to be. It might not succeed. It's just the way it is. We know that success is not guaranteed. One thing we know it's guaranteed is the lesson, right? So if you fail, if it doesn't work, you learn from it and you keep pick yourself up. But I think to take action, you need courage. And I love this quote from Anais Nin that says, life expands and shrinks in proportion to one's courage. And so for women in the underserved communities, this is what I have to say, is that there's no questions we have to work harder. There's no questions we have challenges, and there's no questions that we have to put a lot more forward. But I don't like to leave those challenges, I don't like them to dictate who I am or label me or make myself question my self-worth. What I do with those challenges is I become more resilient, right? And by becoming more resilient, I build more courage. And if I have more courage, I'm going to take more action. So I just use these challenges as my fire to push me forward, and to make me a lot more strong, to make you stronger. Because, once you hear, you become a lot less sensitive to hearing a no. You hear a no, and you hear a no, third time is like, oh, whatever, I'll just move on. And so you just become a little bit stronger. And so that's what I say, is just keep going.
I mean, that's one of the things I enjoyed working with you, was that you always had a smile on your face. Mm-hmm. And anytime I could talk to you on the phone, there was always this positive energy. It's like, never give up.
Nope.
Even when things were like completely in shambles. She was just that persistence. Yep. Is what kept us going. Yeah. Right? What kept us going with you. Right? Yeah. What kept everybody going with you. Was that she was just 110% persistent to succeed. There was always a positive outcome that I would hear from you. Yeah. There was never anything dark. No. There was always some light there to get it's like, okay, we're going to do this. Yeah. Or we're going to do this, right? Yeah. Even though things were falling apart. Yeah. But we're going to keep doing this. Yeah. And then we got that. Yeah, exactly. Right? We eventually got that. Yeah, we do. I think there's always ways to find a different way, right? This doesn't go, we have to. I mean, it's just how, yeah. So all I can tell you is that we are just extremely proud of you. Thank you. And you made all of us so proud. Thank you. For what you accomplished. And I think you're a model entrepreneur of persistence and grit and making something that would cost millions. And you did it for like less than $2 million. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So talk about what's next for you.
Well, I'm very happy. I have a new business partner who's here in the room tonight, Robin. And so we are launching an advisory company called 360, which is basically what I have been looking for when I was in that seat. And we want to focus on companies that are less than 1 or 2 million, but need to get to that point and don't have a framework to be able to get there. One thing I noticed when I was looking for help is that the majority of the framework, the roadmaps that are there for companies that are 8 million plus, and companies our sizes don't have the resources to hire that kind of help. So we want to create processes and systems for companies that need that and need some structure around it. So I'm excited about that. Robin and I have a very similar background and very much enthusiasm. She's also a little fireball. And so that's something that we're excited about. And then I have also, I'm going to be doing some stuff with you. I hope so. Yes.
Hopefully coming to Elevate.
Yes, I am excited about that. And then also, I'm going to join the board of MISO, and that's I'm super excited about.
And you're joining the board of Thai.
And the board of Thai, yes.
So she's doing the virtuous give back cycle.
Yeah.
She's a member and she wants to mentor, and
Yeah.
and that's what we want from our entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Is to become successful.
Thank you. Thank you. If I can help anybody, avoid the mistakes I made, my mission is accomplished. That's exactly what I want to do.
Okay, so with that, we're going to open up for Q&A, and I'm happy to run around with the mic, or is anybody, do you have an extra mic? Okay.
Thank you, great talk. I love that summary, and you talked about building that fire inside. That's a really good descriptor. How could you explain your relationship and how you, your first partner, how did you structure that and how did you unwind it? Did you give them equity or did you just cash out that position?
When we dissolved?
Yeah, with the original founder, co-founder person.
Yeah, so when we structured the relationship partnership, there was definitely some equity there. And then when we dissolved the partnership, he retained his shares when he left. So that was an exchange of a settlement, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thanks, Anna. I had a question. The one thing that I always liked about the stores, and I'm one of your best customers as well as an investor.
Yes, you are.
It's the look and feel of the store. It's kind of minimal, but very appealing. The menu boards and the presentation. Who designed that?
So the original design was actually Chris, who was my my co-founder at the time. And the idea of bringing a lot of white and a lot of simplicity. We wanted to make the vegetables pop more than putting a lot of things going on. But later on, we started cleaning up a little more. So if you look at our newer stores, there's a lot more white and a lot more airiness to it. With the idea would be that you come in and the food is what has color, right? It's because if you see, we put the bowls on the ice and the food pops. So that was the idea, to keep that simple and like calm and not just scream at you. So that was, later on we had a designer, her name is Chaud, and she helped us update the logo, the brand, and the store finishes. So the last two stores is more in what we decided to do towards the end.
Are Evergreens planning any changes to that?
Yes, I think, so right now we are Garden Bar by Evergreens, and then they are eventually going to convert the stores.
Okay. 'Cause by the way, they've added jalapeno to the kale Caesar. It's been really problematic for me.
What was that? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The KFC. I agree. Oh, gosh.
Hi, thank you guys both so much. I'm curious, as you sort of look back on your experience and all the folks that you've interacted with, it sounds like there's some that have been really trusted advisors over time and others that may have you thought were trusted advisors that weren't. And I'm curious if you found sort of similar personality traits or sort of characteristics of those folks that were really reliable and supportive over time, as opposed to those that maybe came in and out and weren't as sort of trustworthy maybe as you had initially expected.
If you're asking me if I saw like a pattern of traits,
Yeah.
no, I did not. There was nothing that I could have said, oh gosh, I should have known because this person just acts like that person. I don't think that's that. And I want to say that I take ownership too on some of these failed relationships because it's not all the other person, right? It's also me. And as I said before, some of the issue could have been that I did not do a lot more diligence on learning what I should have learned. So it's more of understanding how we relate to the person that we're working with and knowing what we need to do to make it happen. So one thing it's important too, it's also with your staff. It's important to know, like some staff come and go, and understanding how do we participate in that relationship, and when it fails, what we did that could have made it a little bit different. Does it make sense? Okay.
Hi, Anna. I remember Zumba. We used to do Zumba.
Exactly. See? For the profits of the house.
Back in the day, I remember you when you said, right, I'm quitting Zumba, I'm going to open this business. I remember thinking, woo.
Yes.
But my question is about your demographics for your customers. Did you have a really clear idea about who and how they buy before you opened the business, or was that something that evolved along the way?
Well, we knew that the people who were into health were like customers we didn't have to worry about bringing in. The idea is we wanted everyone to be a customer, right? So what we wanted to do, one thing that I always ask my team is let's not take a position of, we are healthy and you're not kind of thing. We wanted everybody to come in. The idea was, someone who had never tried quinoa before could come in and learn about it. So it was who the people that we could convert, people who never thought a salad could be a meal, but that we could convert and convince them to do it. But if you're asking about demographics, yes, there's always what you expect it to be, the younger women that go to yoga, or that type of demographics is an expected demographic, so we knew that those would be easy people to come in and to get it. What we did not know is how would that evolve to capture the demographics that we had to convince that would be a good choice for them. And we were surprised to see how many people would come in and tell us how much healthier they became after they started eating salads, and how much weight they lost, or their heart got better, whatever that was. That's how we started to see the evolution. But our goal was to capture everyone, really. It wasn't like, okay, this is our customer and this is not.
Did you know that seasonality was going to be such a factor in your business?
Yeah, we did. We knew seasonality was going to play a role, and we also knew that we had to figure out how to, work with it during the seasons, and which ingredients to bring, which not. A lot of times it would cause some grief with the customers because, we would take an ingredient out of the menu and then they felt like they loved the ingredient and we're like, but it's just not as great. But we knew it. But when we built the menu, the first menu that we built, we didn't take it 100% into consideration. So some of the ingredients, even though we had year-round, it didn't mean that they were going to taste as good year-round. So those are the things we started to improve as we moved forward. Like for example, when we had jicama in one of our salads that was right when we started, but then we found out that jicama is not going to taste good all year round, right? So we took jicama out. And so those are the things we started learning as we were going, but it wasn't, like that.
But in terms of weather, did you know like the weather?
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Not until the first year, no. We did not know. Then it became very clear. After the first year and the second year, it became extremely clear how we had our seasonality, you know, like winter and then summer, and then 20% drop in September. But not until the first year that we saw how it would be.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah.
Question for the investors. Investors, we know of some who are careful to not invest in food or clothing. What are the checkpoints that you would recommend for investors when they're looking at food investment? And how would you advise them?
And I think that, the scalability is one that I would look at, because again, you need to have the volume. That's hands down necessary for the food business to be successful. I would also look at, well, obviously if you have alcohol, it's great. really favor the ones with alcohol. Because you get a lot of the revenue that you don't get, and other things you get into the alcohol, of course. And the checkpoint would be also how much that particular food is going to, what's the staying power of that concept, right? Some concepts are fads. Some of them are they overcrowded? There are some concepts right now that there's just too many of them. And there's just not room, because I think too, you got to remember, even though Portland is a small market, and if you oversaturate with certain concepts, it can be complicated because you just don't have enough people to purchase from every single vendor, right? So even it can be a killer concept, maybe it's just oversaturated. So I think those are the things I would look at. And then I would definitely look at the financials too, to see how they're running their costs. It's important to look at the numbers and to make sure that they're meeting the targets that they have to meet.
Great answer.
We have time for just a few more questions. So.
Hi, thanks for your time. There was something in the last couple of years, a project, I think it was called the Cadabra Pod.
Oh yeah.
I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that, and then were there other different opportunities or ways that you could have or considered taking Garden Bar, like making it a lifestyle business for you instead of pursuing M&A? How did you make those decisions, and what was the process like there?
Yeah, great question. So Cadabra, which is now Minnow, it's actually a portfolio company for Nitin. I think the idea of, we were pilots. I don't know if you guys remember what that was, but it was a pod.
Yeah, and the reason we made the investment is you decided to do a pilot, otherwise we wouldn't have done that deal.
And the idea is, I like the idea so it's a pod where you can have your food in there delivered to you. And actually Emma is using right now, she's working currently with them. I like the idea as a way to test market without brick and mortars. So let's say that you have, 20 pods in downtown of a particular city. You're able to see what the demand is for your product before you invest, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a store. So I think it's a really good way of testing market. And if you have a lot of pods, it's actually good volume for you to do a one round of delivery and being able to do that. So I think that's really good. And then what was the second question?
Just were there other projects or ways that you thought?
Oh, for the lifestyle business, yes. Did I think about Garden Bar as a lifestyle business? Maybe. I'll tell you why. Not because it couldn't have been one, it's just because it's not my style. I like to keep, I can't sit still, so you should probably notice. So it'd be hard for me just to keep it into that and just kind of, it would just not be for me. But I think that, yes, I don't know very much, but I think Laughing Planet is what the owners do now, right? They just run the show and do what we need to do, and I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's a choice for the founder if they want it to be a lifestyle business or if they want to be a company in perpetual growth. Knowing my style, I would probably be in perpetual growth, so it's just my personality.
I have a voice, so I'm not going to use this. How much was the food supply and safety issues, how much was that a factor when you looked at operations every day? Like romaine is suddenly, you know, off the menu, right? So how much chaos did that cause?
Well, you always worried, right? Because all of a sudden you can have a supply chain issue like the last one that just happened, and it's not your fault, but you're the one to blame for it when you don't know about it. So what you need to do is put processes in place to mitigate the issue and then rely on your vendors, because when something like that comes out, the first thing you do is you call your vendor, and your vendor is going to say, yeah, this is a recall, let's pull it all out. But the truth is, you know, whenever there is a story like that, we just pull it out right away. And usually it's not a loss of money because we order food pretty regularly. So if you were to throw away the romaine, you're going to throw away romaine for 2 days. It's not that big of a deal. So we never really carry a ton of food that if we had to recall, it would be an issue. But it's something that's always in the back of your head. And I feel for the people who have issues like that, because this has nothing to do with the restaurant per se. It has to do with the supply chain, and it's, you know, it's the luck of the draw, and it's hard, really hard.
Okay, one more question.
I think there was one in the back there.
We have time for one more, maybe two.
Hi, thank you so much for your information and
Sure.
experience. And as a business owner, you're the, you know, how will you look at somebody like want to like vendor? What kind of skill you, if you want to choose and pick your supplies and your utensils and all the product, if you're going to buy, what kind of skill, what kind of quality you're going to look at that kind of to the suppliers? How are you going to choose?
So the question is, how do we choose our suppliers? Yeah. So, you know, there are, suppliers are always reaching out to you, and you also have recommendations for people in the industry, people who've been working on that. But you need to know the reliability of the supplier, right? So one thing we need to make sure is that they are going to have the supply that we need. So one thing that we can't have is a supplier that when you need the product, they don't have the product. And we've had that issue before, where we run out of product, where they are delayed and that they don't deliver on time. So we have to look for the suppliers that have systems in place that they can meet our needs. So for example, we cannot have delivery between 10:30 and 2 because that's service time. So if a supplier delivers at 12, that's a problem. So they have to be able to meet our needs. They have to have a distribution system that meets our needs. And then also the pricing has to be, you know, you also shop by price. So there are suppliers that are able to give you better deals, right, than others, and volume discounts. So you have to always be looking for the cost of your supplies to make sure that you can make your margins, you know, be what you need to be. Yes, of course.
Okay, if there's one more burning question, we'll allow it. Otherwise,
I do.
okay, awesome. Go ahead.
I was just curious what your self-care has been through that process. Like,
Oh, yes. Lots of
Self-care.
Self-care, yeah. You know, I built a very solid routine for my mornings now. You know, I've been doing that for a while now. I allow myself, I learned that you have to take control of your morning so that the day doesn't take control of you. So once you control your morning, you control your day, right? So I really am very diligent about, I meditate in the morning, I journal in the morning, you know, I kind of take it easy, do my day, and then I check my emails, and then I also learned how to disconnect from email after a certain time of the day, but it took me a while to get there. There were moments that I was always on the phone. It was just terrible. So that's important, and I think meditation, eating healthy is important. In taking time for yourself, but it's very, very hard when you are in the thick of things. It's very difficult to do it. So having the support of your family, of your partner, you know, of your friends, it's very important. There's a lot of crying, I'll tell you, crying makes a difference. I don't care what anybody says, It releases it, you feel good after, right? Do you know what I mean? Like get that good cry, like I'm never gonna cry, and that's exactly, but it feels good, it just feels good, but, yeah. Write a lot, yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'll leave Nitin to close this discussion.
Yeah, let's not close with my crying story.
No, it was amazing.
I'm like, we're gonna close it, I was just crying, that's terrible.
No, I really I want to reiterate that we're so proud of you.
Thank you, Nick.
And proud of the fact that you are now going on another journey, and you're going to give back, and you're going to help the next generation of
I
entrepreneurs.
am.
And the women entrepreneurs, and you're going to, you are setting an example for everybody else that are going to follow in your footsteps, and you're going to be part of that journey.
Thank you.
And their success. So
Thank
I wish you all the best, and we're here to work with you and help you. And
thank you.
and we're, again, like I said, all really proud of what
Thank you. And I want to thank Nathan too. I mean, if we weren't friends in my
No,
moments.
it's not. It takes a village.
No, I know. But there were moments where, and during the negotiation too, I knew I could talk to him and he would, he would hear me out and work with me. So it was
But
great.
it does take a lot of, and some of the investors are here that really we just knew that, that there would be a good ending to this journey.
Yeah.
And we all learned from it, and I think we all learned a lot, and hopefully we'll continue to do more things with you.
Absolutely, we will, for sure. Thank you everybody for coming here. I really appreciate it.